Hey guys, welcome back to Gideon Stuff. I hope you're having a great day. Today we're talking about comfort knives. Not comfortable knives as in good ergonomics, comfort knives as in the same way the word is used for comfort foods. So these are knives that every time you hold them they give you the warm fuzzies inside. Nostalgia, longing, happiness. I'm going to go ahead and make this an open tag video, so any other creators who see this video, feel free to make your own list. But yeah, I have 10 knives here. So it's hard to narrow down because I have a lot of knives that I really love, as far as designs and usability go, but I also have a lot of knives that I love for sentimental reasons that have special attachment for me. Either I got them from someone special, or I got them during a special time in my life, or, they were, just happened to come along at the right time. But for this list, I tried really hard to just narrow it down to knives that every time I hold them, they take me back. They invoke a very strong emotional relief, I guess. And so, in honor of this video, I'm here in my pajamas at almost midnight, and yeah, we're gonna pretend that I look comfortable instead of disheveled, haggard, and exhausted. But yeah, pajama time. You guys thought you were gonna see my feet. Gotta subscribe to my OnlyFans for that. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into these knives, and let's start off with one that you guys see on the channel all the time. Pretty much every review I do. That's my special Ontario Rat 2. This knife is special to me for a couple of reasons. Number one, I did the R2D2 modification on it, because it's the Rat 2 and D2 steel. This was kind of the first major knife mod I attempted. This knife, I ordered it, and it got delayed. I ordered it from Knife Center, and it took, I think 4 months to get to me. Because I ordered it with something else that wasn't in stock yet, and they just shipped them at the same time. So the other thing I ordered when it came in stock, I got this. But, I was getting into knives, real deep, and I wanted a Rat 2 because of Nick Shabazz. I ordered it, and shortly after I got it, I did this mod. And when I did the mod, it was during COVID, and I was living in what I call the blue apartment, and I was miserable. Man, I was miserable. It was not a high point in my life. I was still trying to do school and stuff, but it was mostly online. I didn't really have a whole lot of human interactions. And yeah, I was just kind of struggling. But one night I did this mod, and I showed it off on Instagram. And a person I followed at the time, what's his name? Jurassic Blades, or it was Jurassic something. But I don't think he's active anymore. But he would do amazing blade mods and stuff, knife mods in general. A lot of you probably recognize him. But I was following him, and he saw when I posted this, and he really liked it. He reposted it onto his page, and that really meant a lot to me at the time. It was a nice little boost, and this knife's become a kind of a channel mascot, channel icon, and every time I hold it, every time I look at it, I've just, it reminds me of the early days of the hobby, and just that feeling of accomplishment after I made this, and the recognition I got. I guess that's a weird thing to say, but really cool knife. The Ontario Rat 2 is a classic, and I do like this knife quite a bit. It does have a special place in my heart. Okay, now let's go back to the earliest days of my knife collecting. And we're actually going to look at the first knife I ever bought when I was 11 years old. It was not my first pocket knife, but up until that point, all my other knives have been given to me. This was the first knife that I saved up for and bought with my own money. And it's this little Frost Cutlery Avenger. Nothing fancy, you know, it was not a very expensive knife. Actually, I think I bought this when I was 10, and the price of this was $11. I might be wrong. My memory's a little bit fuzzy. It was a long time ago. But, I remember seeing this knife at a hardware store, feed store, that was local to the place that we lived at the time. And every time we'd go there, my parents would go and pick up the things we actually needed, and I'd go and I'd stare at the knife cabinet. And this was the knife that I lusted over the most. And so it was either right before or right after my birthday. I'd had some birthday money. I'd had some stuff I'd been saving up for a while. And I decided to go and buy this knife. And I talked to my parents about it. I remember my mom being like, do you really need to? And my dad kind of stood up for me. He's like, yeah, you know, let him. And so I went and I bought this knife. And I was just thrilled. Absolutely thrilled with it. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Man, that summer I was showing it off to all my friends and stuff. And we would throw it at trees. In fact, the edge is still a little bit damaged. I should probably resharpen it, but I ended up, like, this thing broke pretty bad. And a couple of years back, again during COVID, when I was bored looking for things to do, I rebuilt it. Centering's good. I swapped out a lot of the internal hardware, like the standoffs and the stop pin, put in new washers, and it's not assisted. The action is much better now. But yeah, I love these Pack-A-Wood grips, and it was just a really, really cool knife. And honestly, you know, every time I hold it, it takes me back to simpler times. You know, I remember very vividly buying this. I remember how the store smelled. I remember walking out of the store with it wrapped up in a paper bag, and I was just excited to get into it. I remember getting in the car and my parents being like, okay, you can't open that in the car. You know, you gotta wait till you're on solid ground, wait till we get home. And I didn't listen, of course. I sat there in the back of the car and I opened it up, and I just marveled at it. You know, it was dark. We're driving through town, though, so every once in a while the city lights would shine down through the window, and I didn't open it yet because, you know, I didn't want to cut myself. I just stared at it. It was just so beautiful. And I opened it a little bit, and I opened it a little bit more, and then I opened it all the way. Yeah. Fantastic little knife. Lots of memories. This thing. Alrighty. Yes, this episode is probably going to be a little bit, I'm not even sure what the word I'm looking for is. Sentimental. So if you're a big, tough, macho man, probably isn't the one for you, bud. Alright, next up. This is a Case Stockman in the Patriotic Crenite? Is that what this stuff is called? I think so. Really, really cool looking knife. I carry this knife every once in a while, especially for special occasions. And yeah, it's a knife that also brings back good memories. So I got this for Christmas when I was 16 or 17. And leading up to Christmas, I think it was a couple months before Christmas, like in October, my dad came back from work one day and he had this new knife and he was showing me. I'm like, oh wow, that's so cool. He's like, yeah, I was at the hardware store and they had a sale on all their case stuff. It's like 50% off. And so, I got this for myself. I was like, oh man, that's so cool, Dad. It's like, yeah. So Christmas rolls along, and every Christmas, what my family would do is Christmas Eve we'd spend with my grandparents who lived, just not too far away. So we'd go over there Christmas Eve, and we'd have what we call scraps, which is just basically you put out all kinds of meat and cheese and bread and vegetables, and everyone just kind of builds their own sandwiches. We'd play card games and board games and listen to Christmas music. And then at the end of the night, we'd open our presents from Grandma and Grandpa, and we'd give Grandma and Grandpa their presents from us. And then we'd go home because Grandma and Grandpa would kick us out before it got too dark and cold. And that Christmas, my dad gave Grandpa one of these. And I saw it. I saw Grandpa open it, and I was like, oh my goodness. And I was looking at Dad, I'm like, you had two? Dad turned to me, he's like, yeah, they had two for sale there. And he said, yeah, they had them all on sale. I picked up a couple. So instantly, I'm getting excited because I'm like, ooh, maybe he has one for me. So the next day is Christmas Day, of course, and we're opening up all the presents, and there's no knife for me. And I remember I was pretty bummed out. That was like, I was anticipating this gift, and I was bummed out that I hadn't gotten it. And I'd opened all my presents, gone through my stocking, and my presents, I got like a pair of socks, got a backpack, which is kind of nice, but mostly clothes. And we're sitting there, and I've got 4 younger siblings. They're all running around and celebrating all this stuff they got for Christmas. And I look over and I see my dad kind of looking at me, and he gets up and he walks out of the room. I'm just kind of sitting there. He comes back, he taps my shoulder, and it was a present. And yes, he'd picked up 3 of these. And so this, of course, that's a special memory. And this connects me to my dad and my grandpa, 2 of the, greatest men I've ever known, my heroes. We have the same initials all the way through. And, it's really nice to be connected in this way. And so every time I hold this knife, it reminds me of my dad, my grandpa, and just good stuff. So there's that one. We need to pick up the pace. We are moving way too slow. Okay, the rest of these aren't going to be super sentimental. There's not going to be a whole lot of talking about them except for this next one. We'll get it out of the way right now. That way the rest can go by pretty quick. I think I've shown this knife one time on the channel. This is an Elk Ridge knife, as you can see, and it's special for a couple of reasons. that is a beast of a knife right there. So this knife really reminds me of Austin. He's been on the channel several times. You guys know and love Austin. We grew up together, and we're related. We're 3rd cousins, so our dads were cousins. But our teenage years, we were inseparable. We're basically brothers. And one of the things that we loved to do together was collect knives. And so we were always trying to outdo the other in terms of what our collection had. And I'll do some close-ups on that boy. And just friendly competition to see who got the coolest stuff. And one year, Austin bought this, and I was so jealous. It was the most beautiful knife I'd ever seen. We'd both seen it several times going into, I think it was a Big Five in a town close by, well, 30 miles away, but and Austin had bought it, and that summer, and actually every summer and winter too, we worked for people in our area, basically just all arounders. We'd chop wood for people, stack wood, haul wood, um, odd handyman jobs. We helped build several sheds, moved a lot of people. We did landscaping, just the types of stuff that teenagers do to make money. And so I'd had some money saved up, and I decided I was going to go and buy one of these too. But they were all sold out. And I was like, ah, dang it. But, every time I was over visiting Austin, I'd, look at his. And I had a picture of this knife on my wall. I had a picture tacked up on the wall of my bedroom. I had a picture of it stuffed in my sketchbook. I was in love with this knife. In a lot of ways, this was my very first Grail knife. But, time pushed forward. Eventually, I just kind of moved on. And it wasn't until I was in college, like, I think this happened like 2 years ago, year and a half, I found this knife again. And so I bought it. And buying this knife, by that point I had the channel. I was getting into, higher end knives. But buying this knife felt more satisfying than anything else, right? And it is a beautiful knife. Yes, it's not super fancy. The steel on here is it's stainless steel, hand forged in China. Doubt. But every time I hold this knife, it reminds me of Austin. It reminds me of being a teenager. All the stupid stuff we'd get into, and, just running around, being dumb. And now, we're both adults. Austin's married. We both got our own lives going on. And we live 600 miles apart now. And so, it used to be we'd see each other every day. And now we're lucky to see each other every couple of months, And so every time I take this knife out and I hold it, it just, it reminds me of my best friend, my cousin, my brother. It's, simpler times, the good old days, right? The good old days. It's a wicked knife. It's huge, as you can see. It's absolutely ginormous. And I love it. Absolutely love it. Okay, we need to pick up the pace here. All right, the next knife, let's go ahead, since we're talking about fixed blades. My Cold Steel SRK. I've made lots of videos about this knife, and I still don't think I've said everything I need to say about this knife, and I probably never will. It's just a really cool knife. Super functional, super heavy duty, and this is the knife that I carry with me when I'm working in the woods, when I'm cowboying, whatever I'm doing that's outdoors. This is the knife that's with me camping, hunting, and it's just really special to me. You carry a tool this often. This is with me pretty much every day, especially in the summertime. And you build a bond with it, right? And this is a knife that, I've had to depend my life on. This is a knife that when things go sideways, if I get stranded out in the woods, we're 100 miles away from any civilization, you know, I'm going to need something to get me through the night. And yeah, this knife could absolutely do it. And you know, when I'm at college or I'm not in the mountains and stuff, I pull this knife out, I hold it, and you know, it just reminds me of roughing it. Reminds me of good old days and toughness and stuff. But really cool knife. Next, the Cold Steel 8015. And you can put a lot of different cold steel knives, especially the Demco designs here. But I chose this one because this is the first knife that I saved up a lot of money to buy. And I love this knife. I use this knife so hard. That sounded a little bit gross. But super comfortable. I think it's a beautiful knife. It's one of my favorite pocket knives. And kind of like with the SRK, when I'm not out in the woods, I'll tell you guys, I miss the woods so much. I hate being in the city. And, you know, sometimes I don't carry this knife a whole lot because, you know, I don't really need it. I carry smaller knives. But sometimes I like to pull this out and just hold it and just remember, you know, being out in the woods, the smell of the cottonwoods, sound of the wind in the aspens, and you know, it's yeah, it reminds me of home, you know, so good deal there. Next up, my original CGRB Feldspar. This knife really reminds me of when I was just getting into the hobby, and this knife, I heard about it, you know, thumb studs on bearings. I was like, ooh, that's cool. And I bought one. I remember how excited I was when it came in the mail. And this was the first knife, really, that I ever handled where I was like, wow, I love this. This is like, this is a thing now, right? And yeah, every time I hold it, it just reminds me of the excitement and the wonder that I first had when I was just getting into this hobby. You know, when everything's new and exciting, and you know, there's just so much to take in. But yeah, and I also like this called the Feldspar. As a geologist, you know, that gets me all excited on my nerdy sensibilities. Yeah, I have a lot of Feldspars, but this one's the comfort one. Every time I hold, I'm like, the good old days. Sticking with CGRB, the Scoria. This is a knife that I really, really like. I actually recently oiled the scales to make them a little more blue. And yeah, this is a really, really cool knife. Again, kind of for the same reasons, the geology connection is really cool. But this is a knife that I bought, and it kind of became just my all-around EDC knife for a while. And it looks really good. It's got the blue micarta. It feels great in hand. And I remember how excited I was to get this. This is a Knife Center exclusive. Just, I don't know why, but this knife is definitely a comfort knife. Alrighty, next up, my Bestech Paladin. This is a comfort knife because this was a knife that I had the most fun testing. When I first started the channel, I did a lot of testing with this knife, and I found out that I just love knife testing, and I love discovering new things about a knife. And it's also a comfort knife because it's simple. D2, G10, not doing anything like super crazy, but it's so dang good. And I don't know, I love simple but elegant, really good knives, and this is definitely that. And I think it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. It's one of those things that's just kind of satisfying, you know? So yeah, Bestech Paladin, love this knife. This is also one of the first knives I ever dyed, and I think the dye job came out fantastic. So cool knife there. And now for the last one. This is the Tucson 301. And this is a comfort knife because it's super comfortable in the hand, but this was a knife that I was really wanting to get, and I jumped on it and got one like seconds before they sold out. But also, it's just, I love the aesthetic of this knife. I love how it's like, I've said this before, but this reminds me of like something that wouldn't be out of place in the Wild West. And yes, this knife has cut me worse than just about any other knife. I still have a scar there, which I still have no feeling on the tip right-hand side of this pointer finger, which is wonderful. But I still love the knife. It's super slicey. I love the aesthetic. Every time I see it, it reminds me of the thrill of the hunt, of, you know, hunting one of these down, and, you know, the satisfaction of getting one. It's also a knife that I had around a very, very difficult time. I had a cousin who was very close to me, little like a brother. He was 16, and he was killed. And it kind of rocked the whole family. And during that time, my parents were helping out a lot with the funeral arrangements and stuff, and I was babysitting my siblings a lot, and I needed, you know, a break myself too, and I needed, you know, a little bit of something to get my mind off stuff. And so I did testing and the review on this knife during that time, and yeah, it was very therapeutic, you know, to say the least. But love this knife, absolutely love it. Great, great knife. All right, we made it to the end of the list. Hopefully that wasn't too cheesy. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Again, this is an open tag, so if anyone wants to make their own video, feel free. And for all the viewers, let me know in the comments below, what are some of your comfort knives? Define it however you want. But yeah, this was 10 of mine, and with a little bit of story behind each of them. So, if you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I will see you in the next one. For now, I'm going to sleep. Adios.